That's what they've just reported, yeah, and that's what we've just reported to Paul. So at the moment, we've just got to follow the leader and see what happens. But a bit of a mixed decision there on the yellow. When the yellow came out, some guys pitted, some guys didn't. It's going to be interesting here in a few laps, because the guys that didn't pit are going to run out of laps. So we'll have to see what happens then.
Barry, what do you tell your driver at a time like this in terms of fuel mapping and traction control?
Well, they've got quite a few options available to them. It's really up to them to try and find the best position for them in these conditions. Only they can tell. Also brake balance, they can adjust that front to rear. But believe me, they've got their hands full just seeing where they're going right now. It's really, really too bad.
It's a good time, Barry.
Thank you.
Well, I'm just down here in Patrick Racing with team manager Jim McGee. Jim, do you know what's happened to Oriel's car? Is he radioed back yet?
Well, yeah, he called in and said the motor started running rough, the engine was rough, but before that we didn't have any, any reason to think there was a problem. And then, of course, we saw the fire, so he's fortunate that, he was in an area where he could get to the fire people.
Thanks, Jim.
So obviously a line or something has detached itself. There's been some sort of fracture or failure, and that's caused a fire at the back of that car, and it's done fairly serious damage. I tell you, Bill, there's going to be some work done on these cars. Look at this Toyota replay of this Toyota well and truly on fire. Just astonishing. And Servia's glanced in his left mirror, right mirror, gone, whoop, this is an ugly scene, and gone hunting for the first fire marshal he can spot at the end of the runoff area, which was a good decision.
And they were quickly on the case, I might add. There is lightning flashing around the circuit. The rain continues. Now we've just been told that turns 1, 2 and 5, that's Honda chicane, Energex chicane and Konica corner. I think that's fairly obvious if you're familiar with this circuit. The drivers will be allowed to go straight through them without penalty. Not so for Foster chicane though, as far as we know at the moment.
It's just turning into a nightmare, isn't it?
Inside Scott Dixon's car here, and it's not the best time to go inside, but it is a good idea. Right in front of your face there, and in front of his right hand, is this sequential shifter. On the right hand side, of course, that's not where most Australian drivers would find their gear stick, but in open wheeler cars that's where it always is, and a handy bit of gear.
Pull back on it to shift up, push forward to shift down. Works on, I guess, an easy way to explain it, similar principle to the gear selector on a motorcycle. It's just a little sprung-loaded return in there, so you just yank on it and it self-centers again back to that original position.
Scott not using it a lot now, obviously, but when they rip through the gears going down the straight, there is some oil coming out of it. That was from Servia's car, my guess. Now, this is the weather forecast, and it doesn't look too good. Strong winds as well as some thick rain.
You can see by the scale down the bottom, the yellow and the purple patches actually show you where the heavy weather, the dark blue stuff is the lighter weather, the rain showers, but the heavy weather is denoted by a different colour. And the Team Green crew watching on the monitors there, looking at the radar output and the Network 10 pictures.
Now this is a difficult race, but we're going to show you a simulcam now of the dramatic difference between Vassar's car and Dominguez's car.
This is wet versus dry, Dominguez in the wet and Vassar in the dry. And there's an enormous difference in those cars. Just have a go at that massive speed difference. Look at the close rate on Jimmy's car in the dry, all over the top. Actually, mind you, when even Mario at his best in the dry is actually a fair bit speed deficient on Jimmy.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier, he's only had the one top 10 finish this year. Cristiano D'Amata is, well, I hesitate to say it, but he's effectively your race leader, because Bruno Junqueira, the man ahead of him on the track, is yet to make his pit stop. But I don't know how much of this race is going to be active, because we not only have the yellow flag out, but we saw that other flag there, which signifies, that's the red and yellow flag, which signifies oil or some other debris on the track that can be dangerous to the driver. So there's all kinds of hazards out there at the moment. So difficult, and
it's hard with an event like this, Bill, because so much goes into the planning and production and the execution of an event like this in every which way possible. And we want to have a motor race. We want to have a good, clean motor race. And in these conditions, one half of the paddock wants to get on with the race and the other half just wants to abandon it and go home.
So just repeating, D'Amata in pretty good shape here because he has made his pit stop, but he's still second on the track. Now the guys around him, that is Junqueira in front and Nakano behind, have not made their first pit stops. Kenny Brack in fourth position has, so he's in pretty good shape as well. Vassar, Jourdain and Carpentier are still to make their pit stop. Paul Tracy, watch for him. He's in 8th place on the track but has made his first pit stop. So Paul will be moving up pretty quickly when the other guys have to go in.
But if we get past that critical number of laps, and we're a long way from it at the moment, it was 30-something, wasn't it? Then Jonquera would be in a position to win this race. Mark?
Yeah, I just came across a radio message between the team Cool Green and Paul Tracy. They were telling him, keep in mind, Paul, that all these cars in front of you have to make their first fuel stop by lap 20. So they were saying that there's only a couple of cars in front of you that have already made their first fuel stop. He should move up to third. So they're saying, keep on the button, keep alive, because we're going to have to be very sharp on this pit.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about that. They do have to pit before lap 20. That's what the 20 is on Dario's steering wheel. So that places extra pressure on some of these guys.
Still a fair bit of oil on that track too.
Just what you need.
So this is nose cam, and we're trying to hear if there's any communication here with Dario and the crew.
Yeah, it's interesting, guys. I'm down here with Scott Dixon's team, and the guys are running through tyres here at the moment, Neil, and they're digging out the ones he originally started on the race with, and they're going to put them back on at his net stop. They're not saying we're not game to put the new ones on at this stage.
Yeah, that's because they've been scrubbed, and you know what it's like, Darryl. You go out there on a green tyre, you know, a nice waxy new tyre of this sort of track condition, and you'll meet Mr. Concrete in a real hurry. So we're still stuck behind the pace car here at the moment. 14 laps in the bank. 50 laps is the expected target for a checkered flag in this event. And they've got to do 36 laps, minimum of 36 laps to declare this an official race, and in order to be able to actually put it in the book and declare a winner and allocate points.
Dominguez in the pits. Dominguez in the pits. And if you thought Cristiano D'Amata was not worthy of what will probably be a Formula One seat next year, Neil says it's definitely on, they just can't talk about it yet, then he is the winner of 8 different championships. Indy Lights in 1998, which was his platform into this championship, but beyond that, or behind that, he had a Brazilian Formula 3 championship win in 94, Formula Ford Brazilian championship in 93, he won a karting championship in Sao Paulo 1992, and further titles back into 1990. So a great heritage there. Not only that, but Cristiano, his dad, Tony D'Amata, won 14 racing championships in Brazil as well, and yeah, you know him now.
Yeah, he's a good bloke, and he was he's a bit of a touring car star in South America, and his young fella has followed in his footsteps and done unbelievably well, as you just accurately pointed out, Bill.
Side by side, some of these cars, you'll find Junqueira, Nakano, Vassar, Jourdain and Carpentier are communicating, talking about coming into the pits here after lap 15. Andretti is in 9th position. They're getting a bit towy now, these guys. They've been under yellow for most of these 15 laps, and they really want to go racing again. It's difficult for them.
The difference is like for the car ahead, car behind. Can you start telling me, because I cannot see it from the board?
It's Cristiano D'Amata that we can hear on the radio at present.
Copy that, Chris. I'll give you your split for the guy behind you and in front.
He's asking for splits because he can't see what's going on around him in his mirrors, obviously, because of the amount of water. He wants splits from the crew so that he can assess whether people
I'll keep you advised.
are catching or not.
15 of 17 races now. Cristiano D'Amata has started inside the top 3 rows on the grid. He's had 7 pole positions to start. It's quite an extraordinary record. That's why he has won this championship so far out. Still circulating slowly here, lightning flashing around this circuit. It's a very scary atmosphere when you're down in the concrete canyons.
Just as a reminder, right now, you are in TC
setting number 8, and you started in 10. We might want to keep that in mind when we go back to it, all right? So just think about that. Pick what you want.
That's thunder rumbling in the background.
Yes, it sounds very much like the FA-18 had returned, but actually, if you did hear that, I don't know if you heard it at home or wherever you're watching, but there was some vicious thunder which caused a lot of people on this circuit to bow their heads for a moment. And I was going to say, this is such a beautiful circuit and such a beautiful place with such a beautiful atmosphere, but gee, it can turn nasty when you're down amongst those concrete walls. But gee, the fans have done a great job.
Tell you what, there'll be some very happy people about the water, though. They've got severe water restrictions here. Darryl?
It was running fine until this last lap under yellow. Suddenly the engine was not pulling. I could not almost follow the field. I was being 50 mile an hour full throttle. So we knew something was happening, and I looked at all the temperatures. I changed all my settings, and we couldn't find what was going on. And suddenly I smelled something funny, and I looked on the mirror and I saw a couple of big flames. I decided that was it for the day.
Thanks, mate.
Thank you.
Good idea, Oriol Serbia. There is Christian Fittipaldi coming into the pits. Oriol had 3 rounds early in the year with Pac West and then sat out 6 races before resuming with the Vistion Patrick car. His best result, 4th in England after qualifying 14th. Now they're talking about bringing out the blower, we understand. And that's another pit stop for Mario Dominguez. He spent more time in the pit lane than I think he has under green today. There are the details on Fittipaldi's steering wheel.
It was a hard thing to do to change teams mid-season, and Serbia replaced Townsend Bell. We're just actually having a look at some data here, I'd say. Mark, what have you got?
Yeah, you're spot on, Neil. Christians come in, they're just downloading data from the engine now, and the hope that the diagnosis equipment will tell them how to fix it.
Yeah, I could see they had the data cable hooked onto the car, so that might give them some idea as to what's going on. Sometimes they need to reboot, just like you do with sometimes with your PC. And I've seen people with sick engines get rebooted and put back in good shape again. But now, does that thing sound all right again? No, I think it does, you know.
We can only hope he has a lot of work to do.
Hang on a sec, no, it still might be rough at the top of the range, but it sounded like it might have been okay in the bottom end of the range. So
I should remind you, if you're watching in a daylight saving state, that we will be running to the end of this race. You've probably figured that out by now, because in a lot of states it's after 5 o'clock. But we will be running to the end of this race, and then we'll take you straight to our national news service. So bear with us here. You can see on the top left-hand corner of your screen what's going on, but we are going to stick around.
The blower is back out on the circuit.
Well, you could do with a few more of those, couldn't you? But you can only ship so much in a couple of jumbo jets from one country to another. Greg Rust.
Well, a pretty nervous-looking Kim Green down here at Michael Andretti's pit right now. Just had a word to him, guys. He tells me, stay tuned, stay with us here. We might play a little bit of strategy. He wants to know what's happening with the weather, but he's a little nervous now in terms of what to do from a pit stop point of view.
What do you do? Bruno Junqueira still to make his pit. Mark Osler.
I'm down here in the Newman Haas pit with Pete Gibbons. Pete, what was the idea with the download of information then?
We downloaded and reprogrammed the ECU, so I'm pretty sure we fixed this problem.
Christian's happy now. Has he radioed back in and told you it's fixed, or he won't know till you go to full green?
Probably won't know till it went full green, but audibly it sounded good, and he went full throttle down the back straight, so we probably should know enough now.
Amazing technology.
Yeah, not bad.
And the good news is that Christian has radioed back to the team, and he says the car is now running fine. So what I suggested there earlier about the reprogramming has actually solved the problem with that car.
If you've just joined us, this is why the race is running so long. We will show you a replay of the calamitous start that we had here in the Honda Indy 300. This is after the first 8 cars crossed the start-finish line and racing further back in the field.
And it was a monstrous shunt, triggered originally by the fact that Jimmy Vasser in the Shell car tagged the back of Adrian Fernandez in the red, white and green car. I think in total 9 cars. Patrick Carpentier and his teammate Alex Tagliani from Players Forsyth. Look at Michael Andretti's onboard pictures here as he gets back into the back of one of the Players cars. Vasser, Fernandez, Mexican Michelle